Hi, I'm Stephanie and I'm Director of the Insolvency Company.
And I'm Gareth. I'm an insolvency practitioner at the Insolvency Company.
And we're also husband and wife. Gareth and I set up the Insolvency Company to be a friendly face in the world of insolvency, in the hope that if your business is facing a difficult financial future, you'd come to us at an early stage and potentially we could help you to avoid closure.
Today we're going to cover some FAQs and talk a bit more about the world of insolvency.
What does insolvency, or what does it mean to be insolvent? Because you hear that word a lot. Obviously, we're the Insolvency Company, but what would you say that means?
So, there are two types of insolvency, but the most common type that everybody really knows about is that you've got debts that you can't pay.
Right.
So you've got, as an individual, you've got a credit card bill and you've got no money to pay that bill when it's due. And we call that cash flow insolvency. So you're insolvent because you can't pay a debt when it falls due. The other type of insolvency is balance sheet insolvency. And all that means is that you add up all of the assets, you add up all of the debts, and if the assets are less than debts, you're balance sheet insolvent. And that's more common with companies that we look at that.
So in terms of, can a person be insolvent? I know a business can, but can a person be insolvent?
Yes, it works both ways. So if you're an individual and you've got, and the common one is you've got lots of credit cards, loans, things like that. If you can't afford to pay those debts and you get a black mark on your credit rating, technically you're insolvent, you're cash flow insolvent. Right. And you can be balance sheet insolvent as well, because you might have a car and a house, but if your debts add up to more than that, the value of those assets that you own, then you're balance sheet insolvent.
And or you can't pay them when they fall due, is that that's correct?
Yeah.
So Gareth, what is an insolvency practitioner?
Well, an insolvency practitioner is a licensed, regulated individual who can A, advise businesses and individuals on their debt problems, and B, take formal appointments. So I can act as a liquidator of a company, administrator of a company, or trustee of a bankrupt. And there are other roles that we can do, but they're the most common ones that people are aware of.
So as an insolvency practitioner, when you're representing businesses, who do you work for?
Well, as an insolvency practitioner, we wear different hats depending on the stage that we're at. So initially, when a director or an individual comes to me, I'm advising them. When they decide to place the company into liquidation, we are assisting the company. So we're working on behalf of the company. So we're engaged to help to place, for example, the company into liquidation. So we're working on behalf of the company to do that. And then once the company enters liquidation, our duty then goes to the creditors, so the people that are owed money. So our job is to try and get money in, sell the company's assets so that we can pay as much back to creditors as possible.
If my business is needing your services, how do I pay for it?
Well, usually...
I assume I haven't got any money.
Yeah, well, I think that's the case of most clients that come to us. Usually, the fees or our fees for doing the service come out of the company's assets. So it's common that a company might have lots of debts. You might owe, let's make a number up, you might owe £100,000, but the company will have assets. It'll have, depending on the trade, it'll have computers, manufacturing equipment, customers that owe it money, and they're assets of the business. So our fees would come out of that. I think effectively it's the creditors that are paying for our services because it reduces the pot from which creditors get their money.
They get at the end. Okay. So if I'm running a business and I know things aren't going well, but I know my sister lent me some money last year that sort of helped because things weren't going great, can I pay her back before I come and see you?
It's very common for directors to want to pay certain people back, because you might have family members, as you mentioned there, people that you've worked with for many years, suppliers that you know very well, they may be friends. But you've got to be very careful, because there is something in insolvency called a preference, and a preference is where you know that the company, or ought to know that the company needs to close, and yet you still pay that individual or that company and don't pay the others. And usually it's HMRC. You know, you think, well, HMRC, it's faceless. You don't know who they are. They can afford it if you don't pay them. But you've got a small local tradesman that's owed money. So you'll want to pay them. It's natural. But the problem is it's a preference. And if you do pay them and then the company goes into liquidation, there's a chance that you will have to repay that. Okay. So it's a risk, and it's something that we have to look at when a company goes into liquidation. My advice is, when a company is in that kind of situation, are you thinking, I should speak to an insolvency practitioner, I need to look at this, that you're very careful about what you pay and get advice first.
Another term that I hear a lot is people using the word bankruptcy or liquidation. Like, what's the difference?
I think it gets confusing because in America, bankrupt can be for both an individual and a company. Yeah. So in the UK, bankruptcy refers to individuals. So only a person, an individual, can be declared bankrupt. Right. When a company becomes insolvent and goes into liquidation, liquidation is effectively bankruptcy for a company.
Okay, so just maybe because of the American influence, that's why people use them sort of
It's just terminology, and if someone states that a company's bankrupt, yeah, it means the same thing, but liquidation is the process of closing a company that's insolvent.
So as a business owner, what would you think? So how do I know that I need to speak to an IP, I need to seek your services?
Oh, there are loads of examples here. I think it's, as a business owner, you're often so busy running the business that you're not really keeping an eye on the back end, on the accountancy side of things. The most common ones, again, it's missing payments. If you're struggling each month to pay the wages, if you're struggling to pay supplies, if you're constantly having to ask for more time, or you're paying people late, if you can see that the arrears to HMRC are increasing,
it might be worth just getting.
They are all indications. Yeah, they're all indications that the business may be struggling. It may be a temporary blip. Maybe that it's just a tight point because trade has dropped. It might be seasonal. But if it's not seasonal and there's no other reason for it, if trade is reducing, then it's worth seeking advice. And
something that we've noticed, haven't we, is that a lot of businesses that have come to us, if they'd had a sort of a better relationship with their accountant, the accountant had been more proactive, they've been keeping better records, they might have seen things happening at an earlier stage that they probably could have addressed. And maybe it's because of the name of the business, the insolvency company. We find businesses come to us when it's too late. And I was just thinking that it would be a really good point for anybody that was watching this, that having that good relationship with your accountant, using the software that's out there, things that make business easier, that show trends and analyse the data. Obviously, it's for you, the business owner, to put that data in or to provide it to your accountant or to put it into the computer. But actually, there's a lot of software out there that can make it easier and quicker so that you can see at an earlier stage. And I just thought that was quite important because I think a lot of the people that come to us, it's too late. Whereas the earlier you take action, the more that you can do. Yeah.
I think a lot of clients only deal with their accountant at the year end when they're doing their annual accounts. And often it's up to 9 months after the end of that period. So you're kind of finding out what the situation was 9 months ago.
Yeah, because when you're starting a business, you're thinking, right, where can I get like a good accountant for the cheapest price? But actually, as you start to grow, you need to invest in those services because they really will help you to make sure that you've got a good footing for your business to grow from.
Yeah, and there are different services that accountants offer, and often the first service you go for obviously is preparing those annual accounts, but that doesn't include management accounting, reviews, quarterly performance reviews. How is my business doing? It's like a health check. Yeah. If you had a problem with your health, you'd go to a doctor and get a checkup. You need to do the same with your business.
Just regularly.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, if your business is in difficulties, or you'd just like to know a bit more about insolvency, send your questions to the Insolvency Co.